If you've ever had
Oh, we doing the thing. Oh. What are we doing? Huh. The plan is to do a little bit of research and set this up for some content, but later on. That's it. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So, I have no idea how this sounds. Hopefully it doesn't sound like absolute dog shit, but fingers crossed. We'll be using it for later. Sure. Couple things we gotta do is this off. Fade out, because we're gonna start actually with our good friend Dr. Mike. What Dr. Mike say? Funny. Let's listen. Oh, there's no sound. Amateur.
If you've ever had a checkup, then BMI definitely appears somewhere in your medical record, and it might be the most controversial term there. BMI, short for body mass index, is a simple measure of height and weight used to estimate body fat, but lately it's gotten a lot of flack.
I do have a BMI of 30. I've been considered overweight my whole life.
If you just look at the BMI, I'm considered overweight.
The index did not.
Living in the obese category, baby. What, I'm 5'10", like what was I, 220? Am I? Heart. Let's see. Or no, I need to be my calculator. DC, I am 5 foot, 10 inches, and I weigh about 220. Calculate. Oh, V obese. Let's go. What am I supposed to weigh? Oh, I'm class 1 obesity. Nice. I feel like isn't there supposed to be a low 18? No, there's like a. There it is. Blanket. Go with this one. 5'10". And go away. Ages, right? Height. Weight. Oh, this is their actual number. I'm an idiot. Okay, so I am 220. And I am 5'10", which is 32, so it's 31 point something earlier. It said, what was my, it should be 18 or optimal. So it put me at somewhere around 130 to 170. I have not been that light in a very long time. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine. 130 pounds, that's so light. Yeah. Anyway, moving along. So thank you, Dr. Mike. Teaching up.
Take into consideration
That I'm obese.
muscle mass, body composition, or even general health.
Are these knocks on BMI fair? And if they are, why haven't doctors ditched the concept entirely? Let's talk about BMI, the problems with it, how I still use it, and what I think might replace it in the not so distant future. The concept of BMI was invented in the 1830s by a Belgian mathematician named Adolphe Quetelet, who had zero plans to create any sort of health metric. The guy was just obsessed with the ideal human body and wanted a way to calculate the size of an average
Dr. Mike?
person. And person really meant white man, since Quetelet only included Western European men in his experiments. He came up with a formula and called it the Quetelet index, weight divided by height squared. What happened next? The Quetelet index gathered dust for almost 150 years. Then in 1972, American physiologist Ansel Keys rebooted it and renamed it BMI. Keys and his
Keys,
colleagues ran a
baby.
study to show that BMI could analyze obesity at the population level. It wasn't perfect, but good enough. Their study was somewhat more inclusive than Ketelay's experiments, but it wasn't that inclusive. It involved healthy men from just a few ethnic groups who definitely didn't represent the entire spectrum of body types. And at that point, experts had only recently realized that obesity was becoming a societal health problem. In fact, for a decent part of the 20th century, weight wasn't even seen as relevant to health. Instead, being overweight was mainly considered a cosmetic issue. It was insurance companies who figured out that heavier policyholders had shorter life expectancies. Then, of course,
Yes. It is kind of shocking to know that, or not even know, but just to think that the health, or I guess weight or obesity or whatever you want to call it, has been such a modern thing. Yeah, I forget what the stats are on. I don't know why I'm taking a wild guess. Why we could just look it up and see. I forget what that is. What kind of our weight looked like as we went across time. God, it's set up. Yep. Weight. People's weight over time. Maybe there's some sort of graph. Gallup. The National Institute of Diabetes Digestion. Where do we want to go with this? Whatever, we'll just go with the first one. Oh, is this funny? Is this a percentage of people that are obese, or is this 1.3 adults according to 2017 to 2018? Oh, there's average weight. Oh, man, I'm terrible at Googling. Average weight cost. Killing it. Killing the Googling. Trends. Banger's average weight holds steady in 2020. What's it say? back. Assessment current weight 1990. Yeah, men. Men are around 180, growing to 200. I see like a. This is actually good to know. You should know this. Push-ups. What do we want to look? Trend of people's weight. Last. History of obesity. Sermo. About USA facts. Solution of BMI values of US adults. Let's know what we're on it. Might as well throw a gander. Health, Genetics Utah, Central Bureau. Oh my god. The Lancet? We trust Lancet? I don't remember. If we can find a chart. Oh. And all right, back at it. So,
of course, they just
oh, tune's back on while reading. gentle background sounds. All right. What is this? The National Institute of Diabetes and Digestion. Evolution of BMI. Thanks. Before we read. Okay, well, let's cite it at least. Okay, let's see. Love your content. Thank you, brand new user. Love your content too. More than 1 billion adults across the globe are overweight, and at least 300 million are clinically obese. This column argues that obesity epidemic in the US has been creeping up throughout the 20th century, much earlier than the official account acknowledges. Current US standards thereby mislead many overweight and obese youth into believing that their weight is normal when it is not. 2010. Sounds it has a viewpoint. Nonpartisan, pan-European nonprofit. Out of curiosity, we'll still read. It seems we are about helpless bystanders of the obesity pandemic sweeping the globe. More than 30 US adults, about 70 million persons, are obese. Yet, before we can come up with the appropriate measurement, a trend, the official view propagated by the CDC in the US, the epidemic appears rather suddenly in the 1980s. I believe this view is misleading. All the studies underpinning the official view refer to a period of effects. That is, they're based on data that average across the population for particular years. They do not look at birth cohort effects. That is, the evolution of weight among people of the same birth year. There is an ample historical evidence that the roots of the obesity pandemic do reach much further back in time than is commonly asserted. The 19th century, we have samples from the West Point Military Academy revealing that today's standard BMI values are amazingly low. 19-year-old white cadets had an average BMI value of 20, i.e. about the 18th percentile of today's standards. About 90% of the cadets were below today's median reference value. In addition, this data indicates that there was very little changes the weight in the 19th century. However, many sample from the Citadel Military Academy in Charleston indicates that a true surge in BMI values took place among those born before the First War. Note that 18-year-old men increased 13 kilos, about 28 pounds during the course of the 20th century, but half of the increase took among those born effect. Hence, this data indicate that. Okay. No data, blah, blah, against the historical backdrop. Okay, I don't know why we're reading this. This is lame. Moving back on. What is the trend? Give me the trend. Nearly 1/3 adults overweight. Total 20 and over. I know the current data. Current is not great. We are, in general, heavy. And it is climbing. Oh, there we go. Trends in children and adolescents 2 to 19, United States 1963 to 1965 through 2017. Whatever. Let's just go ahead and keep watching Senor Mike.
Charged larger people higher rates.
Give me your money, punk.
Today, we obviously know a lot more about the health effects of obesity. Those with it have a heightened risk of developing various diseases and negative health outcomes, including type 2 diabetes, heart conditions, multiple types of cancer, and unfortunately, death. BMI was used the way Ansel Keys intended, strictly for population health, until the 90s, when medical organizations started using BMI ranges to categorize body weight. A BMI of 30 became the cutoff point for an unhealthy weight, and people with 30 or
Let's go.
higher BMIs were classified as overweight. BMI wasn't actually calculated during most appointments until around the 2010s. In an effort to focus on prevention, the official recommendation for US primary care docs was to use BMI to screen for obesity. For patients who met the 30 BMI cutoff, doctors were supposed to offer counseling on diet and exercise.
So that is... So from a population standpoint, when we use BMI, kind of the point that he's getting at is like, we can look at it as like a broad overview of the health of the people. Because obviously it doesn't account for, and you kind of saw in the little clip, like it doesn't count for like muscle, or like the actual makeup of your body itself, but it does give like a broad view. And there is a lot to be said too, that even though if you are like actively like healthy, right? Or let me say, even if you carry mass on you, like bodybuilders, people who are like big, muscular, whether it's muscle or whether it's, you know, body fat, like that weight still has like effects on you. One is a little bit more preferable than the other, but the concept still applies. So anyway, point being, when we look at population size, that's what we're kind of looking at or thinking about when we're talking about like BMI. So it can apply broadly, and then you have to kind of narrow it in and look more individually on what that looks like. There's a funny like, I have a new doctor, or had a new doctor when he was a new doctor, my first visit. And so, yeah, it came in, I'm over 200 something pounds, 5'10", right? On the chart that we just saw, like I'm obese. And he walked in and he like stopped. He was like, "Oh, Mr. Zaffino," like looked at me and was like, "Oh, never mind. I see you work out." And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like you just saw my height and weight and just kind of immediate made an assumption. That's not necessarily a good thing, but kind of a funny thing to, I don't know, it was funny to me at least. Anyway.
2019, BMI was exploding and measured at almost all doctors' visits. Health insurance companies have also leaned into BMI.
I also don't think we should use BMI really for anything, especially as we're talking about like individuals, because it, for every reason we just said, it doesn't really hold much of a purpose, as far as I can tell.
They created cutoff points to approve or deny weight loss treatments. Very commonly, I have patients who require medications like Ozempic or Wegovy get denied solely based on their BMI. As BMI has become more widely used in healthcare, it's received more and more criticism. BMI critics include doctors, patients, public health experts, fat acceptance groups, bodybuilders, and more. Some people want to kick BMI to the curb, while others just want to see it used less. At a high level, there are 3 big problems with BMI that you need to know about.
Oh, okay. What is it? Okay. Doesn't account for individuals. I don't watch enough of his content to get an idea of what he thinks. So we know that it doesn't account for the individuals. It doesn't, or it doesn't take into consideration like the actual makeup of yourself, which I guess might be one and the two of the same. And could or generally be used from like the population standpoint, but not necessarily, or it could be measured for a population standpoint, but it's not indicative of someone's overall health, maybe?
BMI doesn't measure what it's supposed to. Having a larger body isn't inherently harmful. The real risk factor,
Also true.
the thing that's specifically linked to obesity-related diseases, is having a high percentage of body fat. More specifically, a high amount of abdominal fat, which strongly predicts obesity-related diseases, while fat around the hips and thighs matters less. BMI doesn't even really measure body fat.
That is true. When we look at later. Wait, why am I over here? Give me ratio. I'm going to look at something. So this is something that I will use occasionally. Not super often, but where's it at? Give me something. I see a lot of BMI talk as we pull this stuff up. So, put that background music back on. Yeah, we'll sometimes look at waist to hip ratio as a means to kind of get a gauge where somebody might be health wise. And I'm completely blanking on what the name for this is. There's something else to this. But what we're looking at is come on, just give me an image in your tab. There we go. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna use these standards for men. So what we're looking at is you want your waist. So this would be kind of like belly button-ish height. And then, geez, to say, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a beast, says BMI 220. Yeah, seriously. Also, hello. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger would have been like would have been fairly obese. Actually, well, he's 6 something. Arnold. Actually, I'm curious. Arnold, how heavy was he? Arnold's weight. Olympia. Most estimate. I'm sure 35. So it's 235. But he's also what, 6'2"? Let's see. Let's go back to that BMI chart. We got 6'2", 235. Now he's definitely going to be over, like, probably obese because he's a couple inches taller than me and a little bit heavier. We got 6'2", 235. 6'2". Ugh, he's in the overweight cat. He would be considered overweight now, not necessarily obese. Out. Yeah, nonetheless, wild to think about. But going back at it, so when we look at like waist to hip ratio, so waist is like belly button, hips is going to be closer to your like around your butt, essentially like the thickest part if you're going like sideways. The usually you want something that's going to be under 1. Was obese when I mean, the charts will probably change a little bit. Close enough. Overweight, obese, probably not too far off if we're being honest. At that point. So we're looking at ideally under 1 is kind of like what we're going to be shooting for. So when Mike was kind of talking about body, like abdominal body fat being the he's definitely not fat. If anything is the absence of fat. Downfall, opposite though, is that he's also blasting, well at the time was like blasting a shit ton of roids. So the juice was loose, to say the least. Which has its own, you know, horrendous downfall or effects. But stomach or abdominal weight is rough. So there's like usually like there's 2 types of body fat that we look at. So we're looking at like visceral body fat or just kind of like your external body fat. So like role model. You know, we're going off tangents here. You know, I was talking kind of like somebody I know, I'll say that, was asking about, can you be a role model if you were somebody who was taking steroids, whether secretly or openly? Can you be a role model? And I think the answer is still true. Like, yes, you can be. Organ body fat is not good, right? No. No, it's not. That's the body fat that you actually should be, or we are super concerned about. So when you have, essentially, if you can pinch it and grab it, it's not that it's not that bad. That's sitting, it's supposed to be, yes, correct. So the So organ body fat, right? So say we have an image up on here. Different types of body fat. Bang. This is a good image. Good enough, we can see. So the body fat that we don't want, sorry, we have the subcutaneous and visceral. So visceral is going to be your organ body fat. Pretty much the reason why we don't want that is because that creates a lot of pressure inside, like internally into our organs. And that can and does put a lot of stress into like our heart and our like our lungs and everything else that's like in pretty much everything that's inside our body cavity. Those are the things that we want to like be very conscious of and be very aware of, because that's tends to lead to more like negative health effects than just having like squishy fat. So the stuff you can grab, and like you think of like the stereotypical like uncle with a like stereotypical uncle with like the beer belly, right? Most of them are always hard, and so that's all going to be, and you can kind of see this image. It didn't get any bigger, of course, but the abdominal wall, this is all the muscle that we'll have. It's hard because all of that body fat is on the opposite side underneath. So you're just literally pressing up against like the muscle, even though he's got a huge stomach, right? Everything else to the outside, that's the part that's going to be like jiggly. Still not great, but it's also not necessarily something that we want to like shoot for, but it's definitely a lot like, it's better, I guess, in like if we're gonna go with that, right, go with these phrasings. Tends to be a little bit at least semi better for you. That's not to say it's great, but you know, interesting to take note of. Man, I'm getting wild over here. And yeah, brown fat is generally, we would argue, is going to be a little bit better. So just so we can get images, brown adipose tissue. We can get some good images as well. Yeah, what do we got? But generally we think like brown fat tends to be picture. Close it all. Oh my god, I'm the worst. Brown fat's metabolic, essentially. Control plus mouse presume give you and do. Bad thing is it sleep, so good stream. Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for coming by. I plan to do this a little bit more regularly, so come on by, ask all the questions. Appreciate it. Control plus from us. Yeah, I'm an idiot when it comes to all this nonsense. Anyway, brown fat is metabolic. So it actually has it can like it produces it, not produces it. Oh my god, I'm all over the place. Go back to that. Brown fat, brown adipose. Fat. It is, there you go. We can just use all these stuff. Pictures. Ideally bigger pictures. Oh, perfect. Beautiful. Okay. Adipose tissue, or is also known as like fatty tissue. So adipocytes is kind of the name for what we would consider body fat, which is just stored energy, essentially. Okay, so fat adipose type. So you have 3 types normally that you would see. So white. Actually, I've never heard of beige. I'm reading this out as we go. I'm mostly aware of like the white and brown. I imagine it's probably just a combination of the two. So white adipose tissue is gonna be our like primary body fat that we would normally think of. So it's gonna be just the stored energy, essentially. So usually that's all going to be the stuff that we're going to find like around our organs. That's going to be on our skin or underneath our skin. So that we have that picture still somewhere around here. Going base body fat, whatever. But it's going to be pretty much all the thing. When we think about fat, it's going to be the fat, right? And then our brown fat, so it's going to be more metabolic in the sense that it has or produces energy. So as mitochondria, right? We can see that creates energy. Mitochondria, uses what? ATP, powerhouse, mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Vertebrae, genetic heat, generates heat. Yeah. So yes, we tend to have a little bit more brown adipose tissue or brown fat when we are younger. It tends to kind of go away as we get older because we move around a little bit more. We can create our own heat by just pure like motion. Actually be something I might dive into a little bit later on at some point in time, but we'll go from there. Anyway, go back to Magic Mike because we immediately got off. I love it. Yeah, back to Magic. BMI doesn't measure body fat.
You can't determine fat versus muscle percentage or distinguish between good and bad fat types. Instead, it just measures body size and uses that as a proxy, essentially a guess, a decent guess, for body fat. However, you can weigh a lot for your height and still be healthy. That means someone who's incredible
Going back, actually, what's the button to go back? Fuck it up.
shaped
We'll just click back.
And uses that as a proxy, essentially a guess, a decent guess, for body fat. However, you can't determine fat versus muscle percentage or distinguish between good and bad fat types. Instead, it just measures.
Oh, I wasn't, yeah. Anyway, yes, BMI, general, doesn't apply to a lot of things, or doesn't apply to a whole bunch, but I think the other, which we called good and bad fat, also doesn't count for muscle.
Bad fat types. Instead, it just measures body size and uses that as a proxy, essentially a guess, a decent guess, for body fat. However,
which is also a little bit of how I feel about this, about like scales, as well, is kind of the same thing. I don't normally think too much about a scale as anything more than just like a general overview of what your, like where you're at. Not like a measurement of like any qualities, good or bad, just is of like you as a person and how gravity affects you. Whoop,
however, you can weigh a lot for your height and still be healthy. That means someone who's incredible shaped, ripped head to toe, could have a high enough BMI to be considered clinically obese. If any group of people proves this point, it's elite athletes. On the flip side, you can fall within a normal weight range.
Which is also something funny to say, because I save it for another time, but have an argument to be made that I don't like using elite athletes as a means to consider like health, or like pinnacles of health. I don't think is great because to a certain degree, super elite athletes are actually not that healthy. They're always you kind of teeter at this like weird brink of like sickness and health. Always fun to think about.
And have more abdominal fat and less muscle than you should. The BMI scale isn't inclusive. I mentioned that BMI was basically developed from data on healthy white men.
Did not include the inclusive part.
Invented, and then again when it was relaunched in the 70s. This matters a lot because diseases can show up in different ways in different groups of people. Clinical obesity is defined as a BMI of 30 or higher for all adults. 30 makes sense as a cutoff for younger and middle-aged white men because their risk of type 2 diabetes increases starting at 30. But that's not the case for everyone. One 2021 study from the UK looked at the relationship between BMI and type 2 diabetes in more than 1 million people from 5 ethnic groups.
From what I recall or remember, it's not super indicative that that's the case.
White, South Asian, Black, Chinese, and Arab. Participants did not start off with diabetes, but 6.5 years later, researchers followed up to see which had developed diabetes and then figured out the BMI cutoff associated with an increased risk for each group.
So South Asians, the Arabs, pretty much the Asians and the Arabs.
The number wasn't the usual 30 for any non-white group. What does that mean? Well, it means that many
Tell us, Mike.
non-white people who wouldn't be diagnosed with obesity based on their BMI actually have an elevated risk of type 2 diabetes, and they're slipping through our cracks in our system. But why is ethnicity even relevant? Why would a 24 BMI be healthy weight for a white person, but not for a South Asian person? The reasons are truly complex and aren't even fully understood yet. One factor seems to be the relationship between ethnicity and body composition. The amount of muscle and body fat someone has, how fat is distributed, and the type of fat are all aspects of body composition.
That is interesting. Interesting. You, it is funny, like we sometimes think we tend to get a little like dicey when we start referencing like ethnicity and I guess to a certain degree like genetics. You know, there's an interesting history behind that, to say the least. That being said, there is something there. There is history, I think, with that. You know, with diet, there is an argument. I need to read up on this again. It's been a little bit, but there's an argument to be made that like your ancestors kind of dictate a little bit to like what food might work well for you as a like what might work well for you or just I guess eating. I don't know where I'm going with this, but yeah, with just eating in general. We'll just move
Some
on.
research suggests that people of Asian descent tend to have more fat around the organs called visceral fat, which is a type more strongly linked to
Which
type
we
2
learned
diabetes.
about.
While there may be other ethnic-based differences in body shape and composition, like having longer or shorter legs relative to your height, I gotta point out that it's believed that those differences tend to be less impactful as compared to a dietary risk factor like excess sugar-sweetened beverage consumption. Soda.
Amongst many other things. I think, especially, well,
It's
actually,
because overconsumption of sugar
just go with
leads
this.
to direct metabolic harms that aren't instantly reflected in a person's weight. And when that
True.
overconsumption does lead to weight gain, it specifically increases that riskier visceral weight gain. It's not just ethnicity though. The standard BMI scale isn't inclusive when it comes to age either. It's not reliable for those 65 and over. More than half would be classified as overweight or obese, even though many older people wouldn't benefit from weight loss. A somewhat higher BMI can actually be a sign of better health and longevity for older people. Gender is
true.
also a problem. The links between BMI and health seem to be different for men and women, and despite this, the BMI scale isn't adjusted for sex. BMI can
Unsure.
increase weight bias in healthcare. No matter
this is super true. There is 1,000% and I'm not a doctor, but there is definitely a whole stretch of medical bias towards weight. In a lot of ways, essentially in that looking at somebody that is heavier or having somebody that is heavier makes a preconceived notion about who you are as a person, the choices that you're making, and everything kind of thrown in between. And it is, it can lead to sometimes ignoring like risks or thought or fact, like not risks, ignoring like people's complaints, things that they have to say, as well as like pushing off what people might be, doctors might brush off what somebody has to say, like a patient or in front of them, for, you know, assuming a bunch of things about them.
No matter
I don't think I
which
said
way you
anything
slice
just now,
it,
but there we
obesity
go.
is a significant health risk factor. It's inaccurate to pretend it's not. But when someone who's overweight gets sick, their weight isn't always relevant. This might seem like an obvious point, but a common complaint from heavier patients is that BMI comes up at every doctor's appointment, no matter what symptoms.
It's like it's just like if every time that you went somewhere and somebody just pointed out like an obvious fact about you. Like, I think the thing that's always funny is like if you're overweight, you know you're overweight, and You like it's just you know that. Um, I'm sure there are people who are delusional to some degree, but most humans are pretty self-aware, and I think that's one of those like self-awareness things that like we don't need to say every single time. But again, there's also that weird like caveat to the medical system where it's like you still have to do something. You have to say something to a certain degree.
They're having. These patients are tired of feeling judged and being told weight loss might help for every single problem. Migraine, diarrhea, leg pain, weird rash, sad a lot? Well, your BMI's a little
That's like telling every girl who has a headache and ask them if they've drank enough water for the day.
high. Yeah, look, that does go too far. If a doctor gets hung up on a single number every time, it can prevent them from zooming out and getting a more complete picture. That type of bias leads to negative outcomes, misdiagnosed conditions,
Yep.
delayed and ineffective treatment, and patients not seeking care because they stop trusting us doctors. All that is to ask, if BMI
True.
is so flawed,
There is like a
why
fatigue
don't
that
we
you can
just
get.
stop using it? Well, currently, we don't have a better replacement that's widely available. Even with its limitations, BMI can be effective for population health. You see, population health focuses on trends within and across large groups of people. Screening tools are used to understand how a certain disease is evolving and identify who's at risk. An effective screening tool is one that can be easily rolled out on a massive scale. BMI checks all those boxes. It's non-invasive, inexpensive, and can quickly be calculated at any doctor's visit. And research has shown that BMI is significantly associated with body fat percentage in general. So
Yep.
BMI for individual health, usually not great.
Nailed
On its
it,
own,
called
it
it.
just doesn't tell me enough most of the time. What we should do is learn to use BMI the right way. The right way means using BMI alongside other medical information to get a more complete picture. Holistic care.
Yes.
Also, how about we put AI to good use here and have it find some patterns that allow us to better stratify risk? We're always talking about AI taking over
Oh,
health.
is this an ad?
Why not start with crunching millions of numbers to find out the correct cutoffs for diverse groups so that the BMI number can be more valuable for the individual? Anyway, it's more
sister.
important for doctors to understand how BMI can be both limiting and beneficial for patients. We need to learn how to discuss weight and BMI with sensitivity. This doesn't mean we need to downplay the risk, but we should approach the subject with more care. BMI shouldn't be with us forever, and it won't. In fact, we already have several
I think one a hard part, and somebody who also like has to talk to people, about weight loss a lot, honestly. That is one of the main reasons a lot of people would come to see me. Is it's a tricky situation to talk about because you are talking about somebody's body, and there's almost an innate way. There's like an innate self-assessment of that, or the wrong word to use, but there's an innate like, this is who I am. So when you are talking about somebody's weight, it can feel like you're talking about who somebody is as a person, like their humanity, who they are, their morals, like just like have all of the essence of them as a person, even though like there is realistically like a disentanglement between those two. You can be overweight and an awesome person and skinny and a piece of shit. Like these are not mutually exclusive like these things aren't tied together so aggressively. So it's hard to talk about it, but it is, to a certain, it is still something that we have to address. We have to talk about. Obesity and in general it is a problem.
other tools for measuring body fat. One
I'm actually
old-school
unaware of
device
this.
is
Oh.
body fat calipers. They literally
My guess is, I think so we have body fat calipers, old school for sure. Literally pinching body fat. And then, what are we going to say? There are the what are they called? The electric ones. The impedance. whatever. It's the body impedance ones, it's electricity ones. Any of the scales that you ever step on that's got like little metal discs, or any of the like the handles like an in body that you would stand on. That's another one. Though that one's not super. They're not always the best accurate, mostly because water can change how that looks. And then I think the top one, as far as I'm aware, the top tier is going to be our DEXA scan, right? Doing X-rays.
Pinch your fat in several areas to make a measurement, but their accuracy is usually meh. A much higher tech
User
option
error.
is a DEXA scan.
Let's go.
While it's reliable, it also has several drawbacks. It's expensive, it requires pricey equipment, and it exposes you to ionizing radiation. Yeah, that's the type that can cause cancer. However, there is one last method that has recently exploded in popularity, and that's bioelectrical impedance analysis.
Okay. Just talked about that. Also, let's turn this off because we can hear them.
Which uses electrical currents to distinguish body fat from muscle. If you ever stepped on a body fat scale or a body composition.
Just as an aside, is this like, okay, like this room makes me think of Grandma's Boy. It's the Segway. Right, is that what it was? He was riding around on a Segway. Was it in the same room? No, just looks generic room. All right, well, whatever. Anyway, I feel like I see this room all over the place, in like every influencer video or whatever.
Position scale, then you use BIA. Some predict that it'll eventually become the gold standard to assess obesity risk. But not everyone's sold. There's some evidence that BIA isn't really that much more accurate than BMI. Also, BIA can't be measured without some sort of device, while BMI requires nothing except some basic math. For now, BMI is the imperfect
do need a
measure
scale,
we have,
so.
and I think we need to realize that it's a tool, and like any tool, it could be misused or misapplied. But in order to use a tool optimally, we need to continue studying and criticizing its pros and cons. Hopefully we did that here, but what about your bones? Are they stronger after they break? I answered that question.
What
and so
about
many
your
more
bones?
directly from you in my
The
comment section. Click here and check
osteoblast and
that out. As
osteoclasts?
always, stay happy and healthy.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. Appreciate you. Okay. The main takeaway from a doctor licensed in the United States. I think main takeaway that I always kind of keep in mind is like BMI is a tool to use. It is not an overtly objective means to measure you as a person and where your health is necessarily at. Again, because it doesn't account for your body composition. It doesn't account for like sex, race, gender. Well, not gender, sex, race, as well as those. And then or ethnicity. That should be the word that I use. Race, ethnicity. Anyway. So it doesn't account for all of these things. So realistically, when we're ever trying to look at this stuff, it's going to be general body fat is kind of what we're going to be shooting for. If you can, DEXA scans are pretty available at this point in time. They are on the pricier side, but it's also something I don't think you necessarily need to do that much. You can usually get one if you have insurance. You could usually probably get one for not too much. And then I know out of pocket for some of them. So there's a company in California called something that I'm now blanking on. Oh my god, my brain. What is the name of that one? DEXA scan LA. Body Spec. I'm sure there's more of these around, but Body Spec. This is one that I would recommend. I think, what is it? Yeah, $50 roughly one time, like one off or $60. You know, if you're concerned about this, you could probably, if we're being honest, you could probably afford this, but I think this is probably going to be your best way to go about it. Also because you kind of saw a little bit of a picture. Here, let me pull this. Oh my God. pull this off, and I can show you. I think I can still have it somewhere in here, but it does do like a very good breakdown of kind of like how your body is. Yeah. Up real quick. Dashboard. God, I have 25 credits. Dear Lord. If anyone needs any DexaScan credits in the Los Angeles area, I got you. You. Okay. So here's an idea. So you can get a little bit of a view of kind of what this looks like. Row. Okay, anyway. So yeah, you can kind of get an idea. So green's gonna be muscle, these rippling muscles. Red's gonna be body fat. Right, and then DEXA scans normally will kind of give you a little bit of a overview of like where everything's going to be sitting. So it kind of gives you breakdown of like your arms, legs, right? The yeah, visceral, subcutaneous, on the back, the donk. But yeah, anyway, so it gives you like a huge breakdown. You can kind of see, I didn't do a lot of these, so this is just kind of under 3. But obviously I lost some weight, also lost some muscle because that's how weight loss works, sadly. But scroll back up at the top. Sweet picture. Anyway, this is what you would see. So I like it. I'm a big fan. If you can get one, I would recommend it. Cool. Yeah, do that. Otherwise, the doing just like a general, like using a scale and the way you look, I think is an easy way to go about that as well too. Versus like having to do all of the going to do a DEXA. The impedance, the bioelectrical impedance, are also okay. Again, those are ones where you have to kind of do them pretty regularly because it can fluctuate based off of your water. So if you buy one of those scales, I think in this one, it was one of the Withings scales. Without a green, please. Lot of scan. Yeah. I want to use it as an EKG on there. Good to know. But anyway, this is the one that he was demoing in there. Something like this is totally fine too, as well as a way to kind of test out your body fat. It's not going to be super specific. It's not going to be anywhere near as or it shouldn't be anywhere as near accurate as like a DEXA scan will, but it's better than nothing, and it will give you at least a range that you can look at. That's a neuropathy. Interesting. So that's it. Just something to think about if you need it. All right. Cool. We got anything in the comments? My baby's so much better ever since I lost my left leg. I'm glad I became healthier. Went to nutrition about low blood sugar and brought up BMI. She rolled her eyes and gently told me to ignore that. It was really refreshing. I felt like she looked at me holistically. That I am grateful. To ensure our BMI is a tool in the toolbox, an expert to use to guesstimate a starting point for someone's analysis, but is used in a way more non-expert value. Kind of, but not necessarily. Okay, cool. Well, good to know. Yeah. I think this is an awesome video. Obviously gives a good Dr. Mike is Dr. Mike for a reason. We all know who he is for also a reason. So I'd give a thumbs up on, give him a good old 2 thumbs up. Go Dr. Mike. Okay. Moving on. Oh, we got an hour already. We got that. I don't want to do RFK yet. Let's do this one. I think this will be an interesting one. I have not read much up on on raw milk. I did a while ago out of just kind of curiosity because I had a buddy that was interested in raw milk, and that was kind of where it almost started and stopped. I know all of a sudden it kind of showed up again out of nowhere. To be honest, kind of came from a little more prevalent in a certain political leaning. Also kind of absolutely out of nowhere from my interpretation, but you know what? Let's just go raw milk. Oh, raw milk. Oh, raw. Give me raw milk and news. Two cats in California died after drinking raw milk recalled for bird flu. Oh yeah, also bird flu is a thing. Some raw truths about raw milk. The New York Times. Beamed up Bryce Harper as teen over TikTok with his coffee and bread and raw milk. Feel us all. Washington Post. I got Politico, LA Times. I'd have a celebrity-friendly raw milk. Political. He may soon have an FDA. Okay. What have we got? Week. People die of raw milk. Albuquerque Journal. Raw milk. Cat death. A lot of people sell raw milk for human consumption. Raw milk is illegal in Florida. I would have never thought I'd hear the day given the wildness that is fucking Florida. Awesome. Okay. Oh my God, I don't care about cats dying. I mean, I care about cats dying, but I don't care about cats dying about raw milk. Give me page 10. Anybody go back this far in Google search history ever? Does it even go this far? All the way to the Oregon Capitol Chronicle. Watch out. Speaking of RFK, here we are. Mark McAfee. Is that... Okay. Oh boy. And then we have to do everyone's favorite place for raw milk. Good old Wikipedia. Okay. Oh, and realmilk.com. Okay, first, let's watch this video.
The best hack that you don't know about for healing your gut. I'm here in the walk-in freezer at Raw Farm. This is basically raw dairy heaven.
By the way, I have no idea. I don't really know who this is. I just kind of, on my training account, just started looking up a bunch of people and just started following and just kept following and just seeing what would show up. So, Paul Saladino. Paul Saladino. Self-inner diet, followed by me. Several other people. 2.5 million followers. I probably should know who is about. Testosterone, vegan first carnivore, regular eggs, protein. Are you eating hot dogs? Even Oreos. Always.
actually in the cream center filling of an Oreo. So there's no cream in an Oreo cream filling, but it
Oreos are vegan.
is full of two of the most addictive substances that are making us
Sugar and
fat, sick, and unhealthy. High fructose corn syrup
High fructose corn
and
syrup.
seed oils, specifically
Seed
canola oil. In 2013, researchers at Connecticut College did a study on animals with Oreos and actually found that these little bundles of sugar and seed oils turned on the pleasure centers of the rodent brains more than cocaine and morphine.
okay. God damn it. Oh, you can't go back on these stupid
These
things, can
things
you?
are addictive, and they're addictive by design. How can you do
I need to, at some point in time, we're going to read this. We will read this at some point sooner rather than later, because I keep hearing, I've heard this forever, and I've just never looked into it. Sugar, seed, oil, cocaine. Was it 2013? 2013. My search history is wild today. Drugs. Okay. We're gonna watch this thing again in a second.
this better? I think there's an easy way to make something like an Oreo if you want a snack that's much more healthy for you.
Ooh,
Just
cheese and
take
dates?
something like a date, open it up, take the seed out, and put a little cheese in there. Animal-based Oreos, far better than these addictive bundles of joy that becomes misery later on. Do you know
Nothing screams Oreo than an opened up date with some fucking cheese
what's
in it.
actually in the cream center filling of an Oreo? So there's no cream in an Oreo cream filling,
Yeah.
but it is full of two of the most addictive substances that are making us fat, sick, and unhealthy. High fructose corn syrup and seed oils, specifically canola oil. In 2013, researchers at Connecticut College did a study on animals.
Okay. Are Oreos addictive? Research says yes. The link to it. I mean, Rex. Cocaine, terrible. Smelling it. Etiquette. Pa. Um. This is just cocaine as cocaine in general. Oh my god. In Connecticut, 2013. College. Are always addictive. Give me the full. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I want to read this right now. Brain tracking of cocaine. Name one. Oh, this is more recent. Is this a straight up like just newer version of this? Let's check. Are always addictive? Research says yes. Connecticut College, 2013. Students and a professor of neuroscience have found, quote, America's favorite cookie is just as addictive as cocaine, at least for lab rats. And a study is designed to shed light on the potential addictiveness of high-fat/high sugar foods. They found rats formed an equally strong association between the pleasurable effects of eating Oreos and a specific environment as they did between cocaine or morphine and a specific environment. They also found that eating cookies activated more neurons in the brain's, quote, pleasure center than exposed to drugs of abuse. Where's Connecticut College? Okay. I need to find campaign for real milk. Oh yeah, where I forgot what we got. We were starting off on milk. Where is addictive? brain focus on cane. These findings suggest that high-fat sugars and drugs of abuse trigger brain addictive processes to the same degree and lend support to the hypothesis that maladaptive eating behaviors compared to obesity can be compared to drug addiction. Western Kentucky University, Nat Geo. Source error, cannot reach. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Nico, for the tip. New research from University Connecticut. Evidence suggested that food can be addictive. The students were interested in understanding how the availability of junk food in low-income areas has contributed. Okay, the study researchers used a maze. Okay, I just want to read a synopsis of it. Can I trust Jacques Wilson? That Geo? Come on. We're well respected. 2015. Okay, we're on the right path. Are you addicted to food? Let's find out. There's a steadily growing body of research that says that foods high in sugar and fat, all those forbidden yummies like candy, cookie, cheesecake, and pizza, may lead to food addiction. Food addiction is potentially a painfully real disease akin to drug addiction and alcoholism. Processed foods, according to a recent study. Take me to the study for the love of all that is holy, please. Oh, we did it. Okay. I'm gonna read this real. Oh no. It's not the same. I don't know if this is the same study. Go. Oh, I want it. Looked it up. Okay. Well, you know what? We're here. October. Oh my God. How many of these studies were there? Good Lord. Shows that okay, we're just going to read this one. Which foods may be addictive? The roles of processed fat content and glycemic load, design cross-sectional, university, and measurements, results. And okay, I want to specifically at this one. What was the name of it? Was Are Oreos Addictive? Google Scholar. Play. Boop. Ba. $2014 search. Whiskey to Oreo. Not 29. Future. Process content. Oh, we looked at this. Environmental, college ability. Search. Citation. Go full. God. Why? Why can't I find these? Or why can't I get to this? Okay, whatever. Black. Which can be used to indicate or wait. This study found that in rats, the reward behavior associated with consuming high fat is equivalent to the rewarding properties of cocaine and morphine. When the brains of animals were examined, it was found that Oreos caused a higher level of activation than cocaine and morphine in the nucleus accumbens, a brain area responsible for feelings of pleasure and addiction. Findings suggest that high fat is different. Addictive. Oh man. Obesity, addiction is a separate serious societal issue. Ability to control reward seeking behavior. Cravings for drugs of abuse, as well as highly palatable foods, can be triggered simply by exposure to a reward paired environment. Hold on. Obesity is a rapidly expanding epidemic that has serious health consequences and is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Psychostimulant and opioid addiction is a separate serious societal issue stemming from the individual's inability to control reward-seeking behavior. Cravings for drugs of abuse, as well as highly palatable foods, can be triggered simply by exposure to a reward-paired environment. Stimulation of the brain's reward center by addictive substances, including high-fat/sugar foods, triggers expression of immediate early genes, the measurement of which can be used as an indicator of cellular activation. This study found that in rats, the reward behavior associated with consuming high-fat/high sugar foods, Oreo cookies, is the equivalent to the rewarding properties of cocaine and morphine. When the brains of the animals were examined, it was found that the Oreos caused a higher level of activation than cocaine or morphine in the nucleus accumbens, a brain area responsible for feeling of pleasure and addiction. These findings suggest that high-fat, high-sugar foods and drugs of abuse trigger brain addictive processes to the same degree and lend support to the hypothesis that maladaptive eating behaviors contributing to obesity can be compared to drug addiction. Students and a professor of neuroscience have found America's favorite cookie is just as addictive as cocaine, at least for lab rats. In a study designed to shed light on the potential addictiveness of high-fat, high-sugar foods, they found rats formed an equally strong association between the pleasurable effects of eating Oreos and a specific environment as they did between cocaine or morphine and a specific environment. They also found that eating cookies activated more neurons in the brain's pleasure center than exposed to drugs of abuse. Interesting little bit of a difference in reading this, but we'll have that. Are Oreos addictive? Nucleus accumbens CFOS expression is correlated with conditioned place preference to cocaine, morphine, and high-fat high. I would love to read more about this. This will be maybe another day of research of kind of checking this stuff out, because my immediate thing reading this is saying that highly palatable foods triggers a very similar effect of like pleasure centers as like drugs, which is not shocking at all. We're all pretty aware of that concept, but that went off on a tangent to absolutely nowhere. So we'll come back to this and eat dates and cheese, apparently. Anyway, raw milk.
And here you've got raw kefir. This is raw cultured butter. Both of these are going to concentrate all of the healing nutritive elements in the milk fat. And they're also cultured, they're fermented with multiple different additional strains of probiotic bacteria. I've heard so many stories of gut healing. People with Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, that have improved their gut health by including fermented raw dairy, like raw kefir, or cultured raw butter in their diet.
Is it pronounced kefir?
These are so healing for the gut, and no one knows about it. This is the best hack that you...
What about people with severe dairy allergies? The dairy can kill them. Try detoxing your body of parasites. Okay. Raw dairy has been shown in research studies to help with allergies. Most people are intolerant to pasteurized dairy. This motherfucker coming in with the IDs. Save these for later. A mistake by trying it. Let's see. Hello, sir. Could you make a video on how to fix chapped lips the right way? I absolutely love raw dairy, raw goat milk, which is better for us than cow's milk because their gut lining is closer to ours. However, allergic reaction last time, but there's microplastics from the plastic container. Oops, someone is paid to promote this brand. Do you have any advice about acne associated with dairy? They pulled it from the shelves in, oh, this is 8 hours ago? California claiming it was from bird flu. Raw farm products have not been on the shelves since about Thanksgiving. Newscom found out it was good for the people. Remember, they want you to be sick. If we're in Canada, would you suggest visiting a farm and ask for raw cow milk? You rock. Okay. Good for your health. Cures a bunch of diseases. And well, let's do that. Give me notes. Brah, brah. Here, do. Beautiful. Cool. This journey for us. Okay.
You don't know about for healing your gut. I'm here in the walk-in freezer at Raw
Feels
Farm.
good.
This is basically raw dairy heaven. And here you've got raw kefir. This is raw cultured butter. Both of these are going to concentrate all of the healing nutritive elements in the milk fat. And they're also cultured, they're fermented with multiple different additional strains of probiotic bacteria. I've heard so many stories of gut healing. People with Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, that have improved their gut health by including fermented raw dairy, like raw kefir, or cultured raw butter in their diet. These are so healing for the gut, and no one knows about it. This is
claims. Done with you. Let's learn. Oh, most of these are going to be paywalled, aren't they? I'll have to find out if I get stuck. Opinion. That, sorry, Washington Post, Politico. It's our boy, our raw milk. Okay. Go Wikipedia. Raw milk. We're just chatting. Okay. Raw milk. What is raw milk or unpasteurized milk? Pasteurized being like a heating process to kill off the bacteria. It's milk that has not undergone pasteurization process of heating liquid foods to kill pathogens for safe consumption and extension of shelf life. Proponents of raw milk have asserted numerous supposed benefits to consumption, including better flavor, better nutrition, contributes to the building of a healthy immune system and protection from allergies. However, no clear benefit to consumption has been found. The medical community notes that there is an increased risk of contracting dangerous milk-borne diseases from these products. Substantial evidence of this increased risk, combined with a lack of any clear benefit, has led countries around the world to either prohibit the sale of raw milk or require warning labels on packages when sold. In countries where it is available for sale, its availability and regulations around its sale vary. In the European Union, individual member states can prohibit or restrict the sale of raw milk, but it's not banned outright. In some member states, the sale of raw milk through vending machines is permitted, though the packaging will typically instruct consumers to boil before consumption. In the United States, some dairies, the word is, will typically instruct consumers, some have adopted low temperature vat pasteurization, which they say produces a product similar to raw milk. Citation needed. Good to know. Okay. What are milk-borne diseases? Real quick, milk-borne diseases. Common contamination dairy farms, salmonella, Campylobacter, E. coli, listeria. Beautiful. Good things. All right. Yeah, I forgot it's yellow. Ugh. Learned that regularly consuming the milk of other animals following the domestication of animals during the Neolithic Revolution and the development of agriculture. Pasteurization is widely used to prevent infected milk from entering the food supply. The pasteurization process was developed in 1864 by French scientist Louis Pasteur, who discovered that heating beer and wine was enough to kill most of the bacteria that causes spoilage, preventing these turning sour. The process achieved this by eliminating pathogenic microbes and lowering microbial numbers to prolong the quality of said beverage. After sufficient scientific study, the development of germ theory, allegedly, apparently people don't believe in germs. Pasteurization was introduced in the United States in 1980 or 1890s. The move seeks to control the spread of highly contagious bacterial diseases, including E. coli, bovine tuberculosis, brucellosis. All thought to be easily transmitted to humans through the drinking of raw milk. In the early days after the scientific discovery of bacteria, there was no product testing to determine whether farmers' milk was safe or not. These uses. Some cheeses are produced with raw milk, although local statutes vary regarding the health and precautions that must be followed, such as aging cheese for a certain amount of time. A large portion of the U.S. population eats several different kinds of cheese made with raw milk, including aged Gouda. The first Camembert was made from raw milk. The AOC variety is required by law to be made only with unpasteurized milk. Many modern cheesemakers, however, use pasteurized milk for safety, compliance with regulations, or convenience. Health effects. The potential pathogenic bacteria from our milk, including all of these, make it potentially unsafe to consume. Moreover, a review published in 2012 by the Belgian Federal Agency for the Safety of the Food Chain, along experts from several Belgian universities and institutions, conclude that raw milk poses a realistic health threat due to the possible contamination with human pathogens. It is therefore strongly recommended that milk should be heated before consumption. Even with precautions and cold storage, raw milk has a shelf life of about 3 to 5 days. You pretty much need to drink it straight up from the teat. 2024 studies showed that influenza A virus can survive in refrigerated raw milk for several days. The 2020-24 H5N1 outbreak spread to the dairy cattle in 2024, and influenza was detected in commercial milk supplies in the United States. The US FDA warned, as has been its longstanding position, that consumers should avoid raw milk because its ability to transmit influenza to humans is unknown. but pasteurization is believed to inactivate the virus. A high mortality rate was observed among cats that drink raw milk, which we at least saw the headlines for, despite symptoms of H5N1 infection. Nutrition and allergy. With the exception of an altered organoleptic profile, flavor, heating, particularly ultra high temperature and similar treatments will not substantially change the nutritional value of raw milk or other benefits associated with raw milk consumption. Raw milk advocates such as the Weston A. Price Foundation, very interesting that was specifically noted, says that raw milk can be produced hygienically and that it has health benefits that are destroyed in the pasteurization process. Research shows only very slightly differences in the nutritional values of pasteurized and unpasteurized milk. Proponents of raw milk in the U.S. typically argue that while pasteurization may kill dangerous bacteria, it also kills off good bacteria, claiming to have health benefits not present in pasteurized milk. The FDA stated that this is false and that pasteurized milk does not destroy any of its nutritional value. I will just go on the record to say I don't think we should be drinking milk anyway. I will also go on the record as saying I am lactose intolerant, so I generally can't enjoy milk because it hurts my tummy and makes me need to go to the bathroom. But in general, don't know that we need to drink it. Saying. Because I think like I've watched I've watched a lot of vegan documentaries, and I think the one thing that a vegan documentary got me was saying that, like, what is milk except for like baby growth juice? Essentially, it's the like super soldier serum for animals, or this case cows, because it is loaded with like, I mean, it's very high in fat, like colostrum. You get the like the bacterial from the bacteria that you don't get from eating food, like to go into your stomach or your baby's stomach. Like it serves a lot of purposes, but we're like crossing the species line. So like, if we're going to be honest about it, if we're going to drink milk, we should probably be drinking people milk, but that's also like, that's weird to think about too. I don't necessarily say we should do that, but just like for sake of conversation here. That what's that the Chappelle show, that Cambodian breast milk. All right, anyway. One study used mice to evaluate the difference in nutritional values between raw and pasteurized milk. Mice were separated into two groups, a pasteurization milk group and a raw milk group. Each group consisted of breeding pairs. The study's conclusion measured no significant difference in pasteurized to raw milk consuming mice weights. Birth weights were measured from each group, and no significant difference was observed. Overall, the study showed no significant measurable blah, blah, blah. 3 studies have found an inverse relationship between consumption of raw milk and asthma and allergies. However, all of these studies have been performed in children living on farms and living a farming lifestyle, rather than comparing urban children living typical urban lifestyles and with typical urban exposures based on consumption or non-consumption of raw milk. Role in the differences. For this reason, the overall phenomenon has been named the farm effect. A recent scientific review concluded that most studies alluding to a possible protective effect of raw milk consumption does not contain any objective confirmation of the raw milk status as a direct comparison with the heat-treated milk. Moreover, it seems that observed increase of resistance seems to be better related to the exposure of a farm environment or to animals than to raw milk consumption. For example, in the largest of these studies, exposure to cows and straw as well as raw milk were associated with lower rates of asthma, and exposure to animal feed storage rooms and manure with lower rates of atopic dermatitis. Effect of hay fever and atopic sensitization could not be completely explained. Okay. Legal status. I don't really care. We kind of already know, generally speaking. North America. Whatever, don't care. Fine. Okay. Now we know a little bit about where raw milk kind of comes from, generally speaking, in some of its concepts. Okay. So anyway, raw milk is just unpasteurized milk. Now we know. Now we know the thing that we already knew. Okay, do we want to go short one? Okay, start off with Axios. Raw milk has become a common rallying point for right-wing media and wellness influencers, and a cause that Robert F. Kennedy could supercharge as President-elect Health and Human Services Secretary nominee. Gonna take me straight to influencers, or it's gonna...
So we just got...
A little info on raw milk if you didn't already know. Drink raw milk, and my childhood never had problems with digestion. Isn't there a risk of drinking the pasteurized milk? E. coli, sum it up. Physicians here, yes, there's an increase in risk of infection. It's riskier during pregnancy. Okay. Don't care. Why it matters. The dairy product has had a niche following that transcends partisanship for decades. But federal health officials say the lack of heating and pasteurization poses risks like exposure to harmful bacteria, which we already talked about, and we learned a little bit about the bird flu earlier. The FDA and CDC back pasteurization for milk safety. They say raw milk has caused serious illness and a handful of deaths. It's riskier for pregnant people, seniors, kids, and those who are immunocompromised. Rumor illness linked to unpasteurized milk and relationship to changes to state laws in the United States. Consumption of unpasteurized milk during the 2013 to 2018, 75 outbreaks with 675 illnesses occurred that were linked to unpasteurized milk. Of these, 325 illnesses were among people aged 0 to 19. Of 74 single state outbreaks, 58 occurred in states where the sale of unpasteurized milk was expressly allowed. Experts worry RFK's advocacy. I only drink raw milk.
Since I was here last year, I only drank raw milk.
Where was this at? Raw milk can contain harmful germs such as bacteria, viruses, and parasites, which can make you very sick or possibly kill you. If you're thinking about drinking raw milk because you believe its health benefits, consider other options. RFK Jr. is a weird as fuck dude. Like spraying the brain worms. Ooh. What is this? Dear state, territorial, local, we are grateful. Oh, just kind of going over the bird thing. All right, RFK likes pushing right-wing extremism and other threats to democracy. We know that he likes that. What I'm more worried about is that so experts worry RFK's advocacy could undermine science. Quote, what I'm more worried about is that the influence in statements from a position of authority might be misinterpreted as scientific fact, when in reality, there's very, very strong evidence for the contrary. Also, let's go back to, now I realize we're just going to be doing a lot of reading. Background music. Also a little bit quieter. Distract me. Zoom in. Davis has said the threat of H5N1 has been reported in humans, blah, blah. Zoom in. Raw milk doesn't undergo pasteurization, process that applies to the kill pathogens. Since 1987, the FDA has barred interstate shipments of this product and mandated milk be pasteurized. State of play. State laws easing the sale and the purchase of raw milk have contributed to its rising popularity. So too has increasing distrust of public health authorities among libertarians and conservatives, some of whom also frame raw milk as a way to support local producers. Weekly raw milk sales went up in May by as much as 65%. When was this written? Updated the 24th. 65% compared to the same period last year, the AP reported. States including Louisiana and Colorado passed an introduction to raw milk legislation that make it easier to buy and sell. And of course, TikTok influencers tout unverified health benefits from extra ingredients or gut-friendly probiotics. Commenters on sites like Gab, Rumble, and InfoWars decry restrictions on raw milk availability as government overreach. There's like, I don't know how to feel about you know, I have my own speculations of like whatever government stuff you want, neither here nor there. But there's sometimes like I wonder from like a health standpoint, like sometimes people are stupid. Like people are stupid in general. Like we know those people. All of us know a stupid person. And there's like a bit where you're almost like, do you legislate knowing that you sometimes have to handle the lowest hanging fruit? But then you also at the same side have people who are going to be like aggressively just go, well, the government said I can't do this. What are they hiding? I think I need to go do that. That's the thing I need to do. And I don't know. I don't know what you do with that. Oh, also InfoWars, come on. Longtime raw milk proponents rave about its purported benefits. Sally Fallon Morrell, president of the Pro Raw Milk Weston A. Price Foundation, popped up again. Let's look up Weston A. Price. Boom. Has been organizing on the issue of increasing availability for years. For her, it was personal. A self-described breastfeeding Nazi, she struggled to provide enough milk for multiple children in the 1970s and 1980s. She then discovered raw milk through a book and gave it to her children. It was life-changing. It saved my son's life. If you've never been in a situation where you see your child starving, you don't understand the relief that this gives you, she told Axios. Morrell set up a campaign for real milk in 1999 to provide information on and sources for raw milk, which she's seen explode. She blamed the dairy lobby in part for raw milk's less savory reputation. They don't want farmers to have the right to sell directly to the public and to set their price. I wonder what, maybe there's something to look into. Like, I wonder what the logistics are of that. Like, I guess dairy farmers probably don't. Dairy farmers probably don't. It probably goes what? They collect the milk, then it goes to like a processing center. Then it's like packaged, stored, and like sold off like that. Or because I imagine they're not going to do all of that stuff on site. This is how little I know about this, about dairy farming. So, I mean, I guess you can argue that, but then at the same point, like if they wanted to, if big milk was to blame for this, wouldn't it be more advantageous for them to sell raw milk because you are now decreasing the overall steps? Because like most farming isn't like handled by people. Like it's these big companies and corporations kind of generally oversee farms. Most farmers are pretty much working poor, from what I understand. So it would only increase profitability by just going like from cow to mouth, essentially. Throw it in a glass jar and call it a day. Yeah, right. So I guess no. They don't want between the lines. What was once measured or curious coverage of raw milk in left-leaning outlets and liberal foodie hubs like Whole Foods is now full-blown advocacy in more conservative spaces, Politico reported. The Free Press published a story in early 2023 linking one Maryland-based raw milk consumer's affinity for the product to a preference for the blockchain over big banks. He converted from Oatly and Beyond Meat patties. Okay. Blockchain people are the crypto people are the worst. Sorry, everybody. There's no denying public health agency have had difficulty reaching audiences with scientific evidence, especially since the COVID-19 pandemic, when we have completely rotted people's brains. We're at a new precipice where if the FDA says something, there's a fairly large amount, slightly over 50% of our United States population are going to do the opposite just because they said so. The question is how much could harness the public health agencies under the HHS to massage the benefits of raw milk. The best bet is to equip trusted messengers within a community to help answer questions from a place of empathy. There's this entire thing. Bird flu. Oh my, there's too much. Save RFK for later. RFK is very likely going to be a very consistent pop-up for this, so. All right. What else we got? Oh, we're already here. Western Price Foundation. Let's go. Okay. Let's go. Article. Head of a celebrity-friendly raw milk brand says it's is this what we saw earlier? Raw Farms. Is this our boy? Oh, we closed it. Dang. Okay, whatever. California-based Raw Farm CEO Mark McAfee says the recall is a political decision driven by East Coast bureaucrats. Right. The raw milk brand, favorited by R.F. Kennedy Jr., is facing a recall in California over safety concerns, just as the CEO is poised to join the Trump administration at the behest of the former independent presidential candidate. Mark McAfee, CEO of Raw Farm, says he was asked by Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, to apply for a role at the FDA as a raw milk advisor. What I heard somebody say not too long ago, there is no conflict of interest because everyone's interests are aligned. That tracks. It's tracking with a lot of stuff about what's coming up later. Curious what their Twitter has to be just like. Is it just them fighting with people? Of course, it would be an Erewhon. It's back. And we're back. America's favorite raw dairy brand. Well, Shanahan, raw milk update earlier this summer. A farm and witnessed firsthand the precision and excellence behind their operations as the nation's leading raw milk producer in the industry. Oh, does he live in an RV? Of course he lives in an RV. Congratulations, real Donald Trump, on your historic victory. Let's bring the country together and make America healthy again. Is it possible we can get help with the corrupt politicians we are dealing with before January? They're going to take us out before we have the opportunity to help raw milk thrive for the betterment of all, calling for help as soon as possible. I will fight for you. I love your products. We'll continue to be a loyal customer. Thank you. We let our customers know that they can find a restock. We expect this announcement soon. Our family business has faced many political challenges before we are resilient. Now, I think at the end, like, it's always tough because, like, obviously this is somebody's like livelihood, and I have to believe that they believe in it. Like, it's not just for shits and giggles. Like, they're like, you can't be just that, like, maybe you can. I don't know. But, what is this? What's Paltrow? Why? Whatever. Anyway, like, I have to believe to some degree that they believe in it. So, like, that does suck. And I can only imagine how much that kind of, like, it's got to be tough to kind of figure out, like, well, what do you do when your livelihood and your livelihood and your business are being, like, shut down, right? You have to point, you want to point to something or somebody. But man, just sometimes that fucking partisanship is just crazy. Inhibited calcium. Raw milk's the only milk that is unprocessed and bioactive. Some believe that raw milk is a nutrient-rich superfood, while others, like the New York Times, label it as a health hazard prompted by the right wing. Imagine that, raw milk, a right wing thing. So which is it? Speaking with leading. Oh my God, there's too much. Oh my God, are we gonna watch this? Didn't expect a raw milk debate. Raw milk, but here we are. Raw milk.
Quality was terrible. And
God, please tell me it's like they don't believe in bacteria and all this stuff. Did you include the info about how does Scarlet Fever? Oh boy, anti-vaxxers. Vaxopedia. The ADZ guide on vaccines. Fact check. How did scarlet fever go away without a vaccine? I like to use the mortality graphics to trick folks into thinking that vaccines don't work. They also use them with non-vaccine scarlet fever. I guess their argument is that since the disease went away without a vaccine, then polio. Okay, this might not. I thought it was. Whatever. Anyway. It's the worldwide prevalence of lactose intolerance and genetic causes. This was described as early as, but until the 1960s, the prevalent assumption was that tolerance was the norm. Lactose intolerance was thought to be rare until the 1960s. I'm sure industrial processes had nothing to do. Cured his patients regularly with raw goat's milk. Okay. We're gonna who mom to echo healthy planet and healthy people. Back the people done. For all the climate change doomsayers, California has been out of a drought since 2020. We've seen record rainfall, yet the California Department of Water Resources, big city mayors, and the governor have failed to use the water to increase ground hydration and strengthen emergency fire. Tell me you don't live in California. To higher fluoride levels. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Okay, moving along. Can't do this forever. Back to raw milk. Anyway, okay, Katie's running mate Nicole. Oh, that's who. You didn't know who that was. Okay. The California Department of Health issued its latest voluntary recall against the company this week after several batches of raw milk products tested positive for H5N1 bird flu. With the virus spreading rampantly along California's dairy herds, McAfee said it was his farm's turn to have some positive tests. He said it will take around 2 months for the virus to move through his herd before they build antibodies and develop immunity. Until then, he said he is focused on feeding the cows, keeping them healthy, and working with a farm with no infection 300 miles north in order to keep raw milk, cream, kefir, or kefir. How do you pronounce this? How to pronounce
Kefir.
Kefir. Now we know. Kefir, butter, and cheese on shelves. He said that while he's been working closely with state agencies, he feels they're being pressured by federal bureaucrats back east. Regulators, like the FDA, are using avian flu as an excuse, he said, to take action against raw milk. Can we read this one? Essential workers are essential. The shot is not. There's a huge article. Back to this. And he said that while he's been working against raw milk, what they don't want is for raw milk to thrive. And that's the political decision they made years ago. McAfee said of the FDA, it's a new angle to try and discourage us. Ali Bay, Deputy Director of Communications for the California Department of Public Health, said that the state is working to aggressively contain the spread of the bird flu. 30 cases in California gave the raw milk as infections to humans. The FDA is currently involved in an enforcement action with Raw Farm in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of California that wouldn't comment either, citing agency policy. The incident comes just weeks ahead of the confirmation hearing for Kennedy to lead the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, which is already engulfed in heated debates over their controversial appointments by President-elect Donald Trump. While the Kennedy scion is expected to get through... Scion? What is this? I don't know this word. Search Google for scion. Scion has multiple meanings, including a descendant of a wealthy family, part of a plant, and type of a car. Descendant. While the Kennedy scion is expected to get through the confirmation process, his fringe health beliefs on everything from unpasteurized dairy to vaccines are a serious concern to many lawmakers. Kennedy is a raw milk enthusiast because of his purported health benefits, and his former running mate did a campaign stop at the Fresno-based raw farm during their White House run. Kennedy was promised to end the aggressive suppression of raw milk as part of the Make America Healthy Again agenda. HHS houses the FDA, which today strongly recommends against consuming unpasteurized dairy. Kennedy's vocal raw milk advocacy is colliding with the avian flu outbreak in the country's dairy and popular poultry herds. In Raw Farm's home state of California alone, the people and the cows at over 475 dairies have tested positive for the virus. The humans getting sick are mostly dairy workers who come in contact with raw milk at work. But a child near San Francisco has also been infected just this week, California has been confirmed. Raw milk proponents claim that pasteurized milk, heating it to kill bacteria and viruses, also destroys its nutritional value. That hasn't been proven, but it hasn't stopped raw milk from becoming the anti-establishment cause deter in the past few years. Raw Farms, in particular, is drawing many big-name fans like Gwyneth Paltrow, who drinks it in her morning coffee. 3 weeks ago, McAfee said that he was approached by Shanahan to apply for the role in the FDA, and while nothing is official yet, he says he is in their shortlist. Kennedy and the spokesman did not return multiple messages seeking comment. McAfee envisions a 3-part plan for a federal position that oversees raw milk: high uniform standards, better training for farmers to handle and produce it, and access to testing on that. Access on every farm. You would have a renaissance of farmer vigor in this country like you've never seen before. The biggest renaissance. None of McAfee's cows had flu symptoms before their milk tested positive, and he noted that no human case of bird flu has been linked to consuming raw milk. All the more reason, he said, to look into skepticism of the long-term plan to make sure raw milk doesn't come back. Big milk trying to take down raw milk. It is not known what consuming raw milk that is infected with H5N1 will do in humans, says Jennifer Nuzzo, director of the Pandemic Center of the Brown University School of Public Health. But she noted that the studies have shown deleterious effects in animals, some of which develop really hideous symptoms, like neurological conditions. Mad cow, I believe. Raw milk's threat to public health does stop at avian flu, said Keith Paulson, director of the Wisconsin Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. The bad news is that for raw milk drinkers, you still have a higher risk of things like listeria, that one, Shiga toxin producing E. coli, things like that. Dr. Megan Davis, associate professor and veterinarian at Johns Hopkins, we are really confident that this is a bad virus. Kennedy's ascension has helped contribute to a recent boom for the raw milk industry, says Pete Kennedy, consultant with the Weston A. Price Foundation. Raw milk demand in the country has never been greater, and the bird flu has been around now for 8 or 9 months, said Pete Kennedy, referencing several state laws passed this year that have expanded access to the product. And there's never been any evidence since the start of it that anyone has gotten sick from drinking raw milk infected with bird flu. That's like a weird argument to be like, hey, your cows have bird flu, and we probably shouldn't drink it. You should pull it from the shelves. Yeah, but there's no one's been like, there's nothing wrong with people drinking flu infected milk. Like, we don't know that it's bad, so it's like, let them drink it. As for the Kennedy's possible promotion, Pete Kennedy said he hopes eventually it'll lead FDA to change its position on raw milk. He added, but Kennedy's advocacy troubles Nuzzo. He's been proponent of raw milk, and there are no credible studies demonstrating the health benefits. See, the problem is like, whenever you start getting into some of the more wacky stuff, from like the health side of things, you have to kind of go into, you have to go into like weird places for this. You know what? Let's start off with the people who defend it the most. Bird flu in raw milk reveals the lies underlying the latest attack on raw milk. Milk is medicine. Raw milk baby formula. All right. First, let's do planned shutdown. FDA is urging states to stop the sale of raw milk, claiming risk from bird flu. Resources, pharma, presentation, brochures, raw milk safety, the sham of pasteurization. Cult. Like, God, what a wild. What is this? What is that one's web? About request, press release. How much does this stuff cost? The raw milk like hyper expensive. It's also like, God, I just don't like. Was the whole God milk thing? I think was like essentially to boost our dairy industry, right? Like, I'm sure there was some fun lobbying happening behind the scenes on that, but like, what a wild concept to think. Like, how many countries like drink milk? Like, we like seen a general. United States. 17th. We're going down. America number 1, baby. The most milk. Followed by the United States. God. Half. God, India produces so much milk. Milk consumption by countries. Okay, so India drinks the most milk. United States, pretty much like, and then kind of the most of the rest of the country, like the world, like does not drink milk. Greenland, a little bit of milk. Yeah, most are in like the zero. Milk consumption in the United States experienced a slight uptick beginning in 2020 and continued in 2022 as supply chain distributions caused blah, blah, blah. Still, milk producers experienced no growth over the same time frame with the average number. A study by the International Milk Genomics Consortium found that around the world, younger adults drink less milk than older adults. This trend suggests that older adults are responding to the advice about combating osteoporosis as that there's a shift in the habits between generations. Global average calcium consumption is far below the level recommended for adults by the U.S. national standards. NIH recommends 1 to 1.3 grams of calcium daily, while the global average consumption was 0.6. Country. The numbers below represent the most complete data available. However, current trends suggest that India's annual milk consumption has far outpaced countries like the EU, making the country the largest producer and consumer of cow milk. Europe still holds a significant share of the world's dairy consumption. The dairy sector is the second largest agriculture. I wonder if this is milk consumption, because like people also make cheese. Like, is this how many countries drink milk. Global consumption of milk per year. Milk consumption around the world. Countries who drink the most milk. Worldatlas.com. Let's go there. Finland. 2007. When was this? I love me a non-dated thing. January 17, 2018. Finland, Sweden, Netherlands, Switzerland, Greece. Like, it's just so weird. Drinking milk is just so funny to me. It's just realmilk.com. Few of us were born when the Forces for Milk Pasteurization launched the major attack on nature's perfect food. 1945, a magazine called Hornet published an article, Raw Milk Can Kill You, blaming raw milk for an outbreak of brucellosis in a town called Crossroads, USA, killing 1/3 of the inhabitants. The Reader's Digest picked up the story and ran with it a year later. Just one problem with this piece of reporting. There was no town called Crossroads and no outbreak of brucellosis. The whole story was a fabrication, otherwise known as a lie. And lies about raw milk have continued ever since. Unfortunately, the fictitious Crossroads story paved the way for laws against selling raw milk, starting with Michigan in 1948. Here's another example of lies against raw milk, which I've referenced in an earlier post, but is worth repeating. 2007, John Sheehan, U.S. Food and Drug Administrative Center for Food and Safety and Applied Nutrition Division of the Dairy and Egg Safety prepared a PowerPoint maligning raw milk. It was presented at the 2005 National Conference of Interstate Milk Shipments by Cindy Leonard, M.S. Response to FDA, a point-by-point rebuttal to the anti-raw milk PowerPoint presentation prepared by the Weston Price Foundation. Oh God! Myth: pasteurization milk is the number one allergic food in the country. Peanuts are the leading cause of severe allergic reactions, followed by nuts, shellfish, fish, and eggs. However, it is still a major cause of allergic reactions. All right. Oh my God! There's so much. What is going on? I didn't realize Big Milk had there's so much things going on about milk. Fast forward to the present, and as shown in the table below, all of the 15 reports associated outbreaks of foodborne illnesses and raw milk that Sheehan cites are seriously flawed. For example, in 2 of the 15, the study authors presented no evidence that anyone consumed raw milk products, and in 1 of them, the outbreak did not even exist. Not one of the studies shown that pasteurization would have prevented the outbreak. Fast forward to the present, and in the ruckus about the bird flu and dairy cows, more lies, very clever lies, but lies nonetheless. In a press release dated March 25th, the U.S. Department, USDA, and FDA, and CDC, as well as state veterinary and public health officials, announced investigations of an illness among primarily older dairy cows in Texas, Kansas, and New Mexico that is causing the decreased lactation, low appetite, and other symptoms. The agencies claim the samples of unpasteurized milk from sick cattle in Kansas and Texas have tested positive for a highly pathogenic avian influenza. Officials blame the outbreak in contact with wild migratory birds and possibly from transmission between cattle. The press release specifically warns against consumption of raw milk, a warning repeated in numerous publications and internet postings. Where in the press release, national laboratories have confirmed the presence of avian flu through testing, but it does not reveal the type of test used to detect the so-called viral illness. Oh my God, are we back to the type of testing that you can't test a certain type of virus again? Oh my God, COVID again. The first slide, researchers have found H in the milk of sick cows. Officials have not found any viruses in the milk of any other secretions of sick cows. The CDC has yet to reply to a repeated request of proof of finding of the isolated HPO in any fluid of any sick chicken or other animal, nor have other agencies in Canada, Japan, the UK, or Europe provided any proof of isolated avian influenza virus. As for all the studies you can find on PubMed, research claiming isolation of a virus, not one of them shows the true isolation of a virus, any virus from the fluids, phlegm, blood, urine, lung fluids, etc. So the truth is that viruses serve as a whipping boy for environmental toxins. And in the confinement animal system, there are lots of them: hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia from excrement, for example. Then there are toxins in the feed, such as arsenic added to the chicken feed, and mycotoxins, propane and beta-carboline alkaloids in soybean meal. By blaming non-existent viruses, agricultural officials can avoid stepping on any big industry toes, nor add the increase in public okay. So we are in, there has never been an isolated virus, therefore viruses do not exist. Isolation, yeah. So viruses don't exist. That was a fun one. Was the whole thing about germ theory is not a real theory. It's not a real thing. Fun. Second lie. National laboratories have confirmed the presence of through testing. They don't say anything about the kind of test they use, but it almost certainly uses the PCR. PCR tests cannot test for genetic material. That's the fun one. The test was not designed to determine or diagnose disease. It was designed to amplify or increase a certain piece of genetic material. Each amplification is a doubling of the material. If you amplify 30 times, you'll get a negative. Amplify 36 times or more, and you will get a positive. At 60 amplifications, everyone will test positive for what a bit. Oh my God. I don't know if I can read this. What is this? Dr. Thomas Cowan, how the COVID...
Now here is Dr. Thomas Cowan breaking down the PCR test and how it can be used to manipulate the crisis.
Dr. Thomas Cowan described the COVID swab test may be vulnerable to abuse through deliberate misinterpretation and misrepresentation of what... Oh, God. All right, it all comes back to vaccine denial somehow, but here we are. Third, the virus is highly pathogenic. According to the Wall Street Journal, just one person working on the dairies. How do you say this? Oh, what I just remember. How to pronounce dairies?
Dairies.
Does dairies? Dairies got sick and tested positive for avian influenza after exposure to the dairy cattle presumed to be infected with the H5N1 bird flu. That person reported eye redness or conjunctivitis as his only symptom, a symptom that can be explained by exposure to any of the many airborne toxins in confinement dairies, or even the toxic EMF such as 5G. How are they treating the illness with vitamin A and herbal eye drops? No, the poor sod is getting treatment with a toxic antiviral drug. What the fuck? Also, I forgot we were not playing music. Okay. We have somehow stumbled across a vaccine denial through raw milk. But how am I shockingly not surprised? Okay. I'm gonna hold save that for later. Raw milk, baby. It's a thing. Pause 1 second. Apologies. Wait, is it Chinese New Year? Oh boy. Okay. Anyway. Now we know. You know, I also want to go over alcohol consumption and I guess more about just in general what all this is, but you know what? I think we'll save this for later. Also because I think some of this will actually make apply a little bit more as well. Cool beans. So let's this one. There is raw milk. Breakthrough. Boom. Boom. Cool beans. Okay. That's where I'm going to end this for today. I think my plan is to make these pretty consistent, at least on Wednesdays, for at least a couple hours. And then, yeah, I might do some other ones later on. But Wednesdays will be the day. We'll do these in the evenings. Maybe a little bit longer, depending. Appreciate those that came by just to hang out. And I will bid you adieu. See you on the next time. Goodbye. See ya.